He left home for a simple event at the Interlagos Race Track and never came back. 3 days later, his body was found buried in a construction site, without pants, with clear signs of asphyxiation, as if someone wanted to erase not only his life, but also any real trace. What happened that night in one of the most monitored places in São Paulo? Who killed Leonardo? And why? A witness points to security guards. A car with unknown blood adds more questions, and a mysterious woman enters the scene as a key piece in a puzzle that no one can put together. This is one of those cases that doesn't make sense, and that's perhaps the scariest. Because when everything seems to be covered up by coincidences, it's because someone is hiding something bigger. If you also feel that there's something wrong with this story, subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell. Here, every week, we reveal the stories that the world tries to bury. And now, get ready. The mystery of Leonardo will leave you speechless. On the evening of May 30th, Leonardo Machado left home to enjoy a nighttime event at the Interlagos Race Track. It was a place he knew well. He was involved in the world of motors. He participated in amateur kart competitions and used to frequent that environment without fear. Alongside an old friend, he seemed to be calm, walking around the event and exchanging laughs. But as the hours passed, something changed. Leonardo began to move away. His posture became strange, distracted. Security cameras recorded his hesitant steps, walking alone, and then nothing. Silence took over. He no longer responded to messages or calls. And when the night passed, his family already knew something was very wrong. On June 3rd, after hours of unsuccessful searches, Leonardo's body was found in an isolated part of the racetrack. It was in a construction site, covered with dirt, without his pants or sneakers. The shock was not only the death itself, but also the conditions in which he was found. The preliminary report indicated that he had died of asphyxiation. However, one detail alerted the police. There was dirt inside his lungs and respiratory tract. In other words, Leonardo was not dead when he was buried. He was placed there alive and slowly suffocated to death underground. Who could have done this? And why? And even more disturbing, why did no one notice his body there for 3 days, despite the intense searches in the area? The investigation soon became mired in contradictions. The friend who was with Leonardo that night gave a statement that raised more questions than answers. He said that the two had consumed alcohol and that Leonardo had distanced himself after a trivial argument. However, the toxicology report refuted this version. There was no sign of alcohol or drugs in the victim's system. This made the police wonder, why lie about something so specific? What was the friend trying to hide? And most importantly, what happened between the moment Leonardo walked away and the moment he completely disappeared from the cameras? Leonardo's car was found inside the racetrack, in a place with limited access. When searching it, the police found bloodstains on the passenger seat and parts of the trunk. DNA tests revealed something even more disturbing. In addition to Leonardo's blood, there was also genetic material from an unknown woman. The discovery opened a new direction in the investigation. Who was this woman? Was she with him in the car that night? Was she alive? Was she a witness or part of the crime? Leonardo's wife was quickly ruled out as the source of the blood. And with that, the feeling was that there was someone completely off the radar involved in this mystery. An anonymous witness came forward days later with devastating information. She claimed to have seen Leonardo being beaten by 3 security guards at the event. According to the report, the fight had started after an alleged altercation in the restricted access area. The security guards had allegedly acted violently, and at some point, the victim had fainted. Desperate, they had tried to put an end to the problem quietly. The story is shocking, but to this day, it has not been officially confirmed. None of the security guards have been arrested or even removed, and once again, the case seems to be slipping through the fingers of the justice system while questions continue to multiply. Leonardo's family did not accept the authorities' silence. From the first days after his disappearance, his parents and siblings began to pressure the police, the companies responsible for the event, and the security guards themselves. They held public events, gave interviews, and demanded access to the complete images from the venue's cameras. But what they received in return were cut videos, hours of footage, supposedly not available, and evasive answers. It was as if all of a sudden, the entire monitoring system of one of the most closely watched places in São Paulo had failed, precisely on the night that someone was killed there. Coincidence or cover-up? Meanwhile, the experts noticed something strange about Leonardo's clothes. In addition to the absence of pants and sneakers, his shirt had handprints and signs of traction on the shoulders, as if someone had grabbed him hard from behind. The position of his body, thrown upside down in the hole, with his arms close to his body and his face turned to the ground, indicated not only violence but also contempt. Anyone who buries someone like this doesn't just want to hide a crime, they want to humiliate the victim, to erase him completely. It was a murder with silent messages, loaded with symbolism, and that suggested something much bigger than a simple fight. Forensic analysis of the soil where the body was found revealed a frightening fact. The hole had been recently dug. There were signs of recent movement, as if someone had prepared that space, specifically to deposit a body. This ruled out any possibility that Leonardo had fallen there by accident. Someone planned it. Someone had the time, tools, and knowledge of the area to dig a clandestine grave inside the racetrack. And, even more disturbing, they did all of this without being caught on any cameras, any employees, or any of the thousands of visitors who were there that night. How was this possible? Investigators began questioning employees, contractors, and attendees of the event that night. But the reports were strangely vague. No one remembered anything. Many said they had not seen any disturbance, no commotion, no man being dragged away. It was as if Leonardo had vanished into the crowd. A security guard, when pressed, admitted that there had been an argument between a visitor and the support staff, but denied that there had been any aggression. Still, he could not explain why the camera in that specific area stopped recording for exactly 23 minutes, the same time, interval in which Leonardo disappeared from the images. Leonardo's cell phone had been turned off since the early hours of the morning when he disappeared. When it was finally located the next day, it had no battery and was thrown near a fence on the side of the racetrack. But what intrigued the experts was that the device had impact marks and scratches. It seemed to have been thrown with force. The most curious thing? There were records of missed calls made by an unknown number minutes before. The last contact. The line belonged to a prepaid operator and has not been identified to this day. Who tried to call him at that time? Was I trying to alert him or lure him? Little by little, rumors began to emerge about a common practice at closed events like this one: violent security approaches to resolve problems without attracting the attention of the police. A former employee of the venue stated in an unofficial statement that he had seen similar situations before, people being forcibly removed from behind the stage, under threat, and left far from the audience. Could Leonardo's death have been one of these actions that got out of hand, or was there a much darker plan behind that silence? The woman whose blood was found in Leonardo's car remained an enigma. The police were unable to cross-reference her DNA with any national database. This raised two hypotheses. Either she had never had her details officially registered, or she was someone who should not have been there. There was also another, more sinister possibility. The blood could have come from a previous victim. Had Leonardo discovered something he shouldn't have? Something linked to drug trafficking, extortion, or even previous murders? His car, which was supposed to be just a means of transportation, was now the centerpiece of an even larger puzzle. Media coverage of the case gained momentum and put more pressure on the authorities. Television programs began to show Leonardo's face and denounce flaws in the investigation. But at the same time, something strange began to happen. Posts about the case were being removed from social media. Videos disappeared. Content was flagged as sensitive or violent, and families began to receive anonymous messages asking them to remain silent. Was this just a coincidence? Or was someone in power trying to digitally erase the evidence that something terrible had happened in Interlagos? The final report from the IML was devastating. Mechanical asphyxia was confirmed, with signs of chest compression and possible use of a chokehold. In addition, small bruises on the ribs and back indicated that Leonardo had been restrained and pressed to the ground before he died. This reinforced the theory that he was killed right there at the racetrack and not somewhere else, as some initial theories suggested. If it was there, who helped hide the body for so long? Who was complicit in the crime? And why was no alarm raised until it was too late? Exclusive footage released by an independent outlet clearly showed something that the official forensics team had overlooked. A dark silhouette moving near the area where the body was buried, around 4 a.m. The figure appeared to be carrying something. The official cameras, coincidentally, were turned off, but this parallel footage, taken by a visitor's drone, revealed what many had already suspected. Someone was lying. Someone knew what had happened to Leonardo and was trying to make sure no one ever found out. Reports emerged that a cleaning crew had been hired to sanitize a portion of the racetrack the morning after the disappearance. The strange thing is that the area had never undergone such a procedure during previous events. The documents for the contract were missing. No employee would comment. To the most experienced investigators, this was a classic sign of an attempted cover-up, cleaning up the scene before the police arrived. But in this case, it was the event's own structure that organized it. Were they directly involved, or just following orders? With each new detail, the case became more ominous. Friends close to Leonardo began to report that he had been acting nervous in the previous weeks. He spoke of debts, of strangers watching his house, of unanswered phone calls. He even said that if something happened to him, it wouldn't be an accident. These statements were ignored at first, but now they took on the weight of prophecy. Did Leonardo already know that he was being followed? Had he discovered something huge? Or in the end, was he just the unlucky guy who crossed paths with the wrong people at the wrong time? Leonardo's wife was also called to testify several times. On one occasion, she revealed that her husband had received an offer to buy part of the racetrack, or at least invest in a structure that would be built there. The offer had come from a company with shady connections, no fixed headquarters, and whose representatives always seemed to operate in the shadows. Leonardo was suspicious of the deal and refused. Days later, he received veiled threats by email. The police, however, were never able to track down the senders. And this raises the final question: what if all this started not by chance, but out of revenge? As the weeks passed, public pressure mounted. A petition with more than 300,000 signatures demanded that a parallel independent investigation be opened. Leonardo's family also hired lawyers to sue the racetrack for negligence, alleging serious security and monitoring failures. But curiously, witnesses began to disappear. One of them, who had claimed to see Leonardo being dragged away by security guards, refused to give a new statement and suddenly left the country. Another, who had worked cleaning the site, was found with signs of an overdose days before his hearing. Too many coincidences, for those who still believe in them. New investigations revealed that one of the outsourced security companies had former employees with criminal records on its staff. One of them, according to internal sources, had been fired months earlier for assault, but continued to frequent the location as an informal contractor. There were reports that this man was seen on the night of Leonardo's disappearance, near the reserved parking lot. He had apparently argued with someone and disappeared shortly after. No report was filed. No police approach was made. It was as if his presence there had been covered up from the beginning. The mystery of the unknown woman still haunted the case like a ghost. Her blood in Leonardo's car had not been identified, and all the civil and criminal databases returned no match. This led investigators to a new hypothesis. What if the woman was alive and in hiding? Maybe she had witnessed the crime. Maybe she knew something she couldn't tell. What if she was being silenced by those afraid of what she saw? The possibility that someone was still at risk gave the case an urgency that the authorities seemed to be missing. What shocked experts most was not just the brutality of the murder, but the degree of planning involved. Someone who digs a hole, drags an unconscious victim into it, covers it with dirt, and disappears as if nothing had happened, does not act on impulse. He acts methodically, with strategy. Someone there knew exactly where the cameras were, where the blind spots were, and how to act without leaving a trace. This suggested the involvement of people with inside knowledge, and perhaps even the silent permission of superiors. The question that loomed was simple and chilling. Who is protecting whom? The forensic team also found microfibers under Leonardo's fingernails, indicating that he had tried to resist. The samples were made of synthetic fabric, similar to that used in security vests, but no pieces were collected for comparison, no uniforms were provided. The security company claimed that it had already laundered and redistributed the material used that night. Once again, the possibility of evidence destruction was obvious, but ignored. For Leonardo's family, it was like watching justice be buried along with him, layer by layer, under the same silence that suffocated him. A prosecutor who was following the case stated in a private interview that there was indeed political interference in the progress of the investigation. According to him, the name of a major sponsor of the event came up behind the scenes of the investigation, and the order was not to let the case contaminate the public image of the city. This revelation went down like a bombshell among the few journalists who still insisted on covering the case. And it brought to light a new dimension. Perhaps what killed Leonardo was not just a security error, but a network of interests willing to erase any stain with money and silence. Faced with the police's inertia, the family hired private investigators. They followed up on leads, ignored by the police station, analyzed images of visitors, reconstructed the timeline, and even identified suspicious vehicles. One of them, a white van, appears in 2 recordings, one at the side entrance of the racetrack around 2 a.m. and another leaving discreetly at 5 a.m. It was never identified. It was never stopped. It was not even registered on the entry spreadsheet. How did it get there? Who was driving? And why did its route coincide with Leonardo's disappearance? Behind the scenes, people started to say that Leonardo had become a problem for some people. He was known for his strong temperament and had been exposing possible irregularities in the organization of private events at the racetrack on social media. In a live broadcast a few days before his death, he even said, "There are big people profiting from the wrong things here, and one day the bomb will go off." The phrase at the time went unnoticed, but now it almost seemed like a prophecy. Leonardo knew too much, and he was about to expose names, but the truth in that world has a price, and sometimes it costs your life. Months later, the investigation remains open. No formal charges, no arrests, no answers. The Leonardo case, as it became known among the curious and independent investigators, has become just another one of those cold files gathering dust on the shelves of bureaucracy. The feeling of impunity is overwhelming. The hole where they buried his body has become a symbol of something even deeper. The hole in truth, in justice, in the courage to stand up to those who tell us to be silent. Leonardo was cruelly silenced, and it seems that his story is being silenced too. But not everyone has forgotten. There are those who keep digging. There are those who investigate on their own, listen to witnesses, cross-reference data, draw connections. There are those who refuse to accept that this is just another case. And maybe, one day, the truth will finally come out. Not because the system wants it to, but because it refused to die. Because sometimes what they bury comes back. And when it comes back, it will bring with it the fury of everything they tried to hide. And on that day, everyone who helped maintain this silence will finally get what they deserve. That was the case with Leonardo. But unfortunately, he's not the only one. There are other disappearances, other deaths, other buried secrets that no one wants you to discover. If you want to continue uncovering these dark stories and refuse to accept silence as an answer, subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell. Here, the truth does not remain silent, and each new video is a new piece of this puzzle that the world tries to hide.